And welcome back to another live edition of the North Star Takes podcast this week after a thrilling overtime victory over the Carolina Panthers, where it seems like it's kind of the same scenario every single week, honestly, with this team. They have a nice lead, especially in the second half, and then they kind of stop playing football, it seems, at least for a little while. The offense goes into conservative mode. The defense, I don't really know why there's such a letdown on the defense, but it seems that the defense is always giving up a late game score and things get tied and it comes down to kickers and there's all sorts of madness. But at least the Vikings were able to pull one out today. Huge win going into their bye week. Now they're back to 500 at 3-3. So I guess what were your overall thoughts on today's game? Obviously, it was just a roller coaster of emotions pretty much the whole day.
Yeah, I feel like this was just kind of a microcosm for the 2021 season. Like, I think there are like a lot of good things to take away from this game, but there are also still some concerning trends that just kept going. And I mean, for better or worse, you like it or not, the Vikings will always keep things entertaining, whether it's a good or bad thing this year. So I
Yeah.
think that was just more of the same today. Like you said, perfectly a roller coaster of emotions. And I think today, yeah, I guess, I mean, where do you start? It felt like the first half, the defense was in control, and it looked like offensively we couldn't put anything together.
Hmm.
And that was kind of how I felt the game would go. Like
Yep.
coming into it, I was like, our defense will probably look good today against a bad Panthers offensive line, and just the Panthers are kind of reeling, losing back to back coming into today. And then so that's why the defense looked good. But then the offense is going up against a pretty formidable defense in the Panthers, especially up front,
Yep.
because it got Reddick and Burns. But at the same time, it just completely the script flipped and it was weird. One and a half, it was kind of one game, but then after that punt block, really, that's when the whole game flipped. It
Yeah.
was super weird. It's like I can't remember if I've seen that before, where it's like something that catastrophically bad happens. Where like how often does a punt block really happen? I mean,
Hmm.
maybe once a year, maybe probably every couple of years or something to your team, maybe. But at the same time, for us to respond the way we did, we had a statement drive on offense right after that to basically methodically work down the field and
Big time.
score that touchdown, get the lead back, and then right after that, force another turnover. So we go right back down and score 14 points within a matter of 59 seconds or whatever that was. So
Hmm.
that kind of blew my mind. It was like that's really answering the bell and responding to some adversity, which is great to see from this team because sometimes it just feels like when it rains it pours, and there's just
Yeah.
then one thing leads to another, then all of a sudden you're just out of the game. But they responded very well to that, so I'm pretty happy to see that. I feel like our offense, like when all the chips are on the table. I mean, granted, the Cleveland game that didn't really happen, but in a lot of these other late game scenarios we keep finding ourselves in, I feel like the offense really has answered the call for the most part. And I got to give credit to Kirk. I mean,
Yeah.
he's putting us in really good spots at the end of all of these games so far. I mean, obviously Cincinnati, we tied the game. We should have won. Dalvin fumble, and then you get the week two. You had the Greg Joseph missed kick,
Yep.
and that was spoon fed to us, 37 yards out indoors. You feel like you should win that game, and then obviously last week against Detroit, that was massive because that game shouldn't even got to that point, but then
Exactly.
got to set up for that game winning kick, and now you got today too. So I mean, I definitely can't fault Kirk for his late game abilities.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kirk, we were talking about this earlier in our group text, but Kirk honestly has been very good this year. And you and I are, by no means big Kirk Cousins guys, but we have to give him credit where credit's due. I mean, this season is far from his fault. Sure, there's been moments where maybe he and the offense have disappeared, but
Yes,
honestly, I don't really know if that's his fault. I think Clint Kubiak's had some questionable moments as offensive coordinator.
and then Zimmer's
Obviously,
influence.
yeah, Zimmer's influence and being conservative and just wanting to run the ball so much, which we'll kind of get into more today because they came across some of the same issues once again today when they were trying to close out the game. But overall, yeah, Kirk Cousins has been incredible. I mean, he's got three really good receivers. Like KJ Osborne continues to impress year after or game after game.
Oh my
And
gosh, big time catch after big time catch. When you
yeah,
absolutely need it the most, he's always there and he always comes through. That's so huge.
his development has just been huge, honestly, for this offense. I mean, that
Yeah.
Arizona game, he went off. He was kind of the reason we stayed in that game.
Mhm.
Today, obviously, he won us the game, and he's becoming more than just like a reliable third down target. I truly
Yeah.
think this guy is capable of being like a number two wide receiver on any given team. So it's been absolutely huge to have him contribute like that.
Dude, he brings that swag, breaking out the
Yes,
LeBron celebration right after the touchdown, just immediately tossing the helmet like
toss
he's
the
Diggs
helmet.
after the Minneapolis
Yep,
Miracle, and then just beating his chest. LeBron, like, let's go.
I
Give
love
me
it.
that.
I love it because I mean, this is a fifth-round pick who's got a chip on his shoulder. He had something to prove going into this season,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
he had all the training camp hype. He was the guy that everyone was talking about during training camp. All the reporters were saying, "Hey, this guy looks really good." But
Yeah.
then, of course, it's like, okay, well, we need to see it in games. We need to see it in the preseason, and
Yeah, you feel like you've heard this before in recent years
exactly.
with the receivers, like, oh, this guy looks good. And then you get in the regular season, it's like, well, where is this guy?
Yeah, exactly. So it's been great to see that translate to the regular season for him to have that success.
Mm-hmm.
Another bright spot today, I thought, was even though the offensive line in general I thought was kind of shaky, Christian Darrisaw looks like a legitimate left tackle, and to have him and Brian O'Neill be your potential bookends for a long time, I mean that is massive for this team, and especially like I'm not going to rule it out at this point that we roll with Kirk again next year and maybe just let the contract play out. I don't know. It's
Maybe.
obviously there's a lot of season left, but if that's the case, I mean, at least you have two really solid tackles, and I still like Ezra Cleveland at guard. I think Bradbury and Oli Udo are pretty questionable at this point. Udo's kind of been on a slide ever since his good start to the season, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure teams have seen stuff from him on tape that they'd like to, or that
Exploit.
they're exploiting his weaknesses there. So it
Mm-hmm.
might be time to give Wyatt Davis a look at right guard. They got a couple weeks to figure that out as well, but
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I don't know, man. Kirk's been really impressive, and I didn't see this kind of start to the season coming from him
Dude.
because he usually starts slow. And
Yeah.
when we get an 0-2 hole like that, it feels like he's not going to be able to just yank us out of there, you know. But it seems like
Yeah.
a different Kirk this year.
Absolutely. It's a lot to climb out of when you start 0-2, but here we are now. We're 3-3 going into the bye week, and this is a vintage Kirktober performance. Honestly,
Right?
I think this guy obviously balled out today, and the offense in general. I mean, oh my gosh, 550 yards! Holy smokes!
Yeah, third
And
most ever for the Vikings.
yeah, which that was nuts. I mean, by the time we got right after that punt block, it's like everything went uphill for the offense. Everything came together. Everything clicked. I mean, Kirk was going for over 350, and you got Dalvin add another, what was that, 140 yards or something like that on the ground. I mean,
Yep.
you could tell by the end Dalvin was definitely gassed though, because I mean, in this day and age, you don't usually give your running backs the rock 30 times,
No.
but especially when the guy probably comes into the week like comes into the game just not totally 100%, and we're
Yeah.
just who cares? Let's just ground and pound Delvin. Here you go. But he was taking malicious shot after malicious shot too. I mean, it feels like that's been happening a lot this year. And then when he got
Yep.
just absolutely left out to dry on that play action screen pass, when he had four offensive linemen standing on the perimeter and Reddick gets around all of them and just smacks Cook right at the catch point. And I'm like, that should not be happening. I mean, come on, guys. We can't just let our guy get left out to dry like that.
Can I just say that I absolutely hate that play? Like every
Oh,
time they
absolutely. It
run
never
that
works. I've
play,
never seen that play work for us.
no matter who's on the receiving end, sometimes it's like Thielen or Jefferson. Like you have Kirk roll all the way to his right, which I mean he's fairly slow rolling out of the pocket. So
Yeah.
like that alone takes a lot of time.
There's no speed there.
Then you're
Absolutely
chucking
not.
it all the way back across the field. By the time the ball gets to the receiver, someone is there waiting for him every single time. They need to throw that play out of the playbook.
Exactly. That's a long developing play that you have to be extremely precise with where you pick and choose to deploy that, because obviously there's some times where you could catch a defense that's just overly aggressive, just goes all in on the first look, like,
Yeah.
Kirk rolling right. But at the same time, most defenses are going to have at least one guy that's going to be able to be disciplined enough to read that. And yeah, like we're saying, like this, I've never seen this play work. So I feel like it's just not the move. But at the same time, like it could have been executed if somebody gets a body on Reddick out there. But
Yeah, that was poor
all our
offensive
guys.
line play right there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like that can't happen. And it looked like, according to all the football minds out there, that was on Darrisaw. So I guess that's going to happen, especially for a guy in his first start. But
Yep.
I mean, I can't complain with Darrisaw's overall performance today either. I'm really happy to see him out there instead of Rashad Hill, and because Darrisaw definitely looked like he looked like a lot more in control than Hill has been this
For
season.
sure.
So happy to see that, and especially from a first round pick when we haven't had the best of luck with first round picks in recent years. Outside of Jefferson, obviously Jefferson's the home run, but everybody else, it's been pretty not great.
Yeah, it's great to see Darrisaw stabilize that left tackle position. You can just tell he's so much bigger. He's just got such a better base than Rashad Hill. Like he's not going to just get tossed backwards. So, I mean, I could see him maybe struggling with some speed edge rushers coming off the edge there, but
Maybe.
I don't know.
You get probably a lot of left tackles out there that struggle with that, though.
Exactly. And he's obviously going to just keep getting better. I mean, it's clear he's got the talent to do it. So now it's just about fine-tuning his craft. So I've been really impressed with that. But yeah,
Exactly.
going back to Dalvin Cook, I mean, I thought it was pretty obvious. He didn't look 100% still. Like, I think he just decided, I'm going to play. I'm good enough to play. And I was encouraged to see him be able to run for 140 yards, get back in the end zone today.
Oh my
And
gosh, yes.
I don't blame him at all for, he looked really good today, but they got to give Madison more carries when Dalvin Cook plays. I mean, what did Madison have today? 3 carries or something like that? I
It
mean,
was something like that. He's got to get more run because that's another thing I wanted to say is that Dalvin's an absolute grinder, and I really don't like everybody calling out Dalvin for he's hurt all the time. But it's like running backs aren't supposed to get the rock 30 times a game. Like you
look at
can't possibly
McCaffrey.
expect them to stay on the field all the time. Yeah, like McCaffrey, everybody sings the praises of him. He's the highest paid running back in the league, and he's very good. Don't get me wrong, but that guy
Yes.
doesn't stay on the field either. So I mean, what's all the resentment towards Dalvin? I feel like there's other things we can explore on this team to really nitpick other than that.
Exactly.
Like
For
Dalvin's
sure.
a dynamic playmaker, and if we're gonna obviously I like to get the ball in his hands as much as possible. At the same time, there's limits to that, especially running backs. Like they can
Yep.
only take on so much before it's just way too much, and all of a sudden they're down and out and injured because they just can't handle a violent position like that or snap in and snap out. Like it's just the way it
Yeah,
is.
I agree with you. I mean, Madison has shown in the 2 games that Cook has missed,
He
he's
can
more
handle
than he's more than capable of being able to handle it. And
it.
I feel like with him and Dalvin, you have 2 different kind of running backs there. I mean, they're somewhat similar, but Madison's more of a power back. He's more willing to just run straight up the gut and run right through somebody. I mean, I feel like you could kind of use that. Like if the defense is getting worn down, put a bruiser in there to, wear him down even more. And I don't know. There needs to be more of a split there because even at the end of the game, we're trying to drive down the field, kick a game-winning field goal. I was hoping we'd go for a touchdown, but it's like 3rd and 8, and we're on like the 30-yard line, and they run the ball for no reason at all with Dalvin Cook, and he gets stuffed, and out comes Greg Joseph trotting out there, and he kicks it wide right because it's a 50-some-yard field goal in an outdoor stadium. Yeah, that's coaching malpractice in my mind, and you can blame Kubiak for calling the play. Some people maybe blame Kirk for not audibling, but I'm sure in a situation like that, he just runs the play that's called.
Absolutely.
But that's got to be coming from Mike Zimmer in my mind, because I'm sure Zimmer's saying, all right, let's run the ball, get a couple of yards, and we'll have Greg kick it. And if you're not in an indoor stadium in a controlled environment like that, I just do not trust that whatsoever. You got to keep being aggressive, try to get the first down, keep running clock. Because at that point, if you get the first down, you're going to run at least another couple minutes off the clock. And then, you'll have a closer field goal at the very worst, if not trying to score a touchdown. So I was not very happy with that sequence. And obviously, Joseph misses the kick. And, Carolina, of course, they're backed up, whatever. Sam Darnold completes some lucky 4th down pass. I mean, he completed a couple 4th down passes on that drive.
He made a couple of huge throws, and I couldn't believe it. Honestly, the way he played the rest of the game, I would not have believed you if you'd have told me he was going to make those throws right at the end when it counted the most. Like, he was terrible for most of the day. And obviously, he didn't really get any help from his receivers either. They were dropping passes right and left, but at the same time, for him to drop it right out of the sky, and especially that one to DJ Moore, I was really impressed with, just because Everson, he was staring down the barrel. I mean, Everson's coming right at him as a free runner, and all of a sudden, he just hit DJ Moore right on the sideline there to set him up with that touchdown. So I couldn't believe it. I mean, props to him for that, but still, I feel like we should have never got into that spot where we're banking on Greg Joseph to hit these kicks, and that's another gripe I have. Like, you go back to your play call with Dalvin that you mentioned, running right. Like that, if you're setting yourself up for a kick, if you're just settling for 3, you never run to the outsides. You always hit the holes right in the middle, basically to set up your kicker with a centralized kicker, whichever hash that he prefers. And we didn't do that, so I'm not really sure what the thought process was there. But that definitely has to be better next time. And honestly, because especially when I can't remember how much. We didn't really have any success today. I can't remember any plays, I should say, where we ran to the right on a sweep or around the outside, and it really worked. I feel like everything good and productive as far as the run game goes today, I felt like came between the tackles.
For sure, because I think Carolina's got a really fast defense, especially their linebackers and their ends. And it's tough to run around the outside on those guys. You got to give them props for that. But, yeah, like you said, running up the middle, and it makes sense. If you're trying to kick a field goal, I saw something today. Apparently, Greg Joseph prefers to be on the left hash.
Yeah, I don't run the ball to the right.
Exactly. His 2 field goals that he missed today were
He
from the
pushed
right
it.
hash, and he pushed it
Yeah.
right, which
Yeah.
granted, if it was on the left hash, he might have missed too, because, I mean, those were not very close. But,
No, absolutely not.
yeah, if you know that your kicker wants it on the left hash, I don't understand that part of it as well. But, yeah, man, I don't know. It's crazy because, like, after the Lions game last week, you think they would have learned some things when it comes to, like, game management, clock management, when to be aggressive, when not to be. And it was basically the exact same thing again today. End of the first half, they completely melted down on offense. They had 40 seconds, a couple timeouts. They could have drove down the field, and they did absolutely nothing with it. But in overtime and in the fourth quarter, when we need a drive, the offense just bing, 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 bing all the way down the field.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't they do that in the first half? Like, I know there's more of a sense of urgency, but with more pressure on you, it should almost be more difficult, you'd think. But
Yeah.
that's just another thing that makes this team so weird, is that the offense seems to click in like super high stress situations, which is great. But,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
why can't we have that at other points in the game?
Yeah, that's a huge contrast to last season. That's market improvement, and that's what we need if we're going to have a successful season. Is just the ability to really clutch up. Because I remember countless times last year. Like I think the one I always think of, honestly, that really left a bad image in my mind was probably that Tennessee game last year. That really we had in the bag, and then it came down to the end where I think if we'd got a field goal right on the last drive of the game, we'd have won the game. But the thing
Mhm.
was, it's our offensive line, everybody just collapsed, and we did absolutely nothing, and
Yep.
that was just unacceptable. And I felt like this year we've done a 180 as far as that goes, and we've been able to sustain drives and put our kicker in spots to go win the game for us. Or today, I'm glad in overtime we really were aggressive and played for 6, because
Mhm.
that's like you said a little bit ago, is like just being aggressive and not not really putting too much on the leg of your kicker, just because we've seen that before, how that goes for us. I don't know what it is, just luck or whatever it is, coaching. I don't know, but I think we definitely got to push the bill a little bit and played our offense and honestly our strengths and as far as just weapons go. And I feel like we can really score at will against anybody in this league. But it just comes down to everything coming together, whether it be play calling or Kirk not feeling flustered or the
Yeah.
offensive line holding up just enough. But
Yeah, that's kind of what makes that Browns game so frustrating too. It's like you look back on it and you're like, man, if Christian Darrisaw would have played that game, would have things have been different? Because, like, how many times was Rashad Hill literally getting thrown back into Kirk Cousins by Myles Garrett?
oh my gosh, yeah, that'd have
I
been
mean, yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, obviously Darrisaw probably wasn't ready to play yet, but it's like, man, that difference right there would be 4-2. Like, you can always say what ifs. Like, should have
oh
lost
yeah,
the Lions game too. So,
no, I mean fair.
I mean, it probably makes sense that this team's sitting at 3-3, just given the absolute roller coaster these first 6 games have been.
Yes.
And in all reality, 3-3 is not the end of the world in terms of like where you're at for the rest of the season. But
I mean, we currently hold the playoff spot in the NFC right now. I mean, albeit that's 6 games in.
yeah,
Let's not get too crazy, but still, I mean, for what that's worth.
but to your point, like outside of like the division leaders in all the divisions,
And then
there's nobody
probably
that's there's nobody
two
that's
two
really
teams in the
truly
West,
impressed.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
the Rams and the Cardinals, but other than
yeah,
that, there's like no other like second team in a division in the NFC that's like truly impressive. So that spot is definitely going to be there for the taking.
hmm
Um, I think it's going to be close with us and the Bears, though. Like, the Bears have looked decent since Justin Fields has taken over, and like while he himself has not been great,
he'll get
like
better.
they're staying in games, they're being competitive. They were somewhat close with the Packers today until the end of the game. So, like, I don't know, man. I think the Bears might be a tough one too.
Yeah, I think I would say if you're going to mark any games on the schedule that are be important, whether we make the playoffs or not, I'd say today was definitely one of them. I feel like Carolina could definitely be in the mix at the end of the season. So this is a huge head-to-head victory to have. And then I'd also say coming up at San Fran, I think it's like 5 games after the bye or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be huge for playoff positioning or potentially getting in or not. And then I'd also say, like you mentioned, the 2 Chicago games that we're going to have in the last 4 weeks of the season. I think that's also going to be critical to our playoff chances. So I think if you're going to circle games on the schedule, I'd say most important would probably be the San Francisco game, and then I would say the 2 Chicago games.
So if you had to give this team a grade, A through F,
Sure.
now that they're at the bye week, we have a week off. We can kind of digest how these first 6 games have gone.
hmm
What would you give them as an overall grade right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say a solid B minus. I'm gonna
Okay.
say a B minus because I'd say average scale, you'd probably say CC plus. I think
Yep.
we're slightly above average, even though we're a 500 team. I feel like we've done a lot of good things. Obviously, we've been too sloppy sometimes, and that's why we have 3 losses when I think we should have less, and
Yep.
that's why the grade is also lower than having maybe pushing an A or A minus, whatever you want to say. But I feel like I like the look of this team as far as when we're clicking. I think we're as good as anybody, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I feel like we can have some catastrophic mistakes that could really uh, tank the season. So it's really up in the air still. We're still kind of finding out week by week uh, what this team's really capable of, and I think there's a lot of potential here. But at the same time, I feel like we're playing all these close games, whether they're against good teams or bad teams, and that's kind of a concerning trend because obviously you're not going to win all of these close games. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I'll just say B minus just because I think we're slightly above average, but I wouldn't say too far above it just because we are still 500 through 6 games.
That's fair. I mean, I'm going to give us a flat C, honestly. I
Okay.
mean, which is kind of, obvious given that we're 3-3, we're 500, but
Hmm.
the first week was so incredibly disappointing. And
Yeah.
then I thought, week 2 against the Cardinals was actually pretty impressive, even though we
Yeah.
lost the game. Like we hung with one of the best offenses in the NFL.
The only undefeated team in the league right now.
Exactly. And yeah,
Yeah.
they're 6-0. So that's crazy to think about. We almost beat them.
Hmm.
The Seattle game was impressive, but I think Seattle's just not a very good team.
Yeah.
Obviously, now Russell Wilson's going to be out for a little while.
That's taking them down the tubes then. Yeah.
Yeah, the Browns game was super disappointing, only scoring 1 touchdown, which was on the first drive of the game.
That can't happen.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. The Lions game was bad. This game was good. So or good for the most part, I should say. So
Yeah.
it seems like they're on the upward trajectory again, but then they come out of the bye with a primetime game against the Dallas Cowboys. So,
Hmm.
and Dallas has one of the best, if not the best offense in the NFL right now. So
Yeah.
that'll be a tough test for this defense, I think, because the defense has looked like it's improved, but it's also gone against Jared Goff, a struggling Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold in the last 3 weeks. So it's hard to know whether that improvement is actually legit. They seem to be getting to the quarterback quite a bit. They've had pretty much the same amount of sacks this year as they did last year, which is obviously a good sign. But
That's a good sign. That's pathetic for last year, but yeah, that's really good for this year. And I think everybody felt like was getting home to the quarterback today, and that's huge. That's going to help the rest of your defense immensely, especially when you have a secondary that you feel is a little suspect. Then if you got a good D line, like that can cover up some of those deficiencies for sure.
yeah, I thought today was kind of interesting because Daniil Hunter and Everson Griffin didn't have a sack, but James Lynch did. Armon Watts had a strip sack, which was huge.
Yeah,
Just some
Dalvin
other
Tomlinson was all over today. I felt like
exactly, yeah, some under the radar guys. Dalvin Tomlinson not so much, but
yeah.
some under the radar guys making plays. But I'm just going to give us a quick plug here. If you're new to this channel or watching us for the first time, this is the North Star Takes podcast. We talk Minnesota sports, all 4 of the major Minnesota sports, sometimes Gopher sports as well. So yeah, if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button, especially if you're a big Minnesota sports fan. Give this video a like as well, as it'll help spread the word to other sports-loving fans as well. So yeah, and we're just talking some Vikings here after a solid victory to send us into the bye week. And I thought some weird stuff happened today, man. Chris Herndon
Oh
caught
my gosh.
a touchdown. It's his only catch of the season. CJ Ham had a 30-yard run.
Oh, dude, he juked him out of his socks. My gosh, he planted on 1 foot in the ground and was gone.
Everything about this game today was so freaking weird, man.
Dude, I know, it's like there's a lot to unpack. I don't even know where you begin. Like I said, it was like first half of the game felt like it was controlled by the defense, and then you come out in the second half, and then all of a sudden the offense is just going up and down the field at will. I mean, yards on yards on yards. And like you said, there's a little bit of something from everybody. Like you said, CJ Ham running for 30 yards. And then you got obviously Thielen having a huge day. My gosh, he ended up with 11 catches. I can see this in the bottom. Yeah, 11 catches, about 26 touchdown. I mean, that touchdown him in the corner of the end zone there, like that looked horrible, like right from the snap.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell the pass rush was getting home, and obviously it's one of those ones where you roll right, so you split the field in half, and then you could see, like on replay, everybody's covered in the end zone, like in the back, like Jefferson, but then all of a sudden just fit it in this insanely tight window to Thielen right in the corner.
Yeah.
That was very impressive, both by Kirk that fit it in there, and then Thielen actually bring that in. So that's just Thielen, though. These last couple of years, just a red zone machine.
Oh yeah, that's huge without having Kyle Rudolph here now.
Oh yeah,
It's kind of nice to have Thielen step up to be that like true reliable red zone target. So yeah, I think that I got to give Kirk a lot of credit though because he's really improved on getting the ball out quicker this year. There's been
true.
a couple scenarios where he's held onto the ball and taken a sack, but like I think overall Kirk's done a really good job getting rid of the ball quickly. He's more aware of like when the rush is coming. And I don't know what the heck changed over the offseason because for the last 3 years we've seen the same player here, but
Yeah.
he's really improved. And I truly can't complain about how he's played so far this season.
Yeah, there might be something to it too that he watched every single one of his games he's played in the NFL to
That's
this
a good
point
point.
this offseason. So like maybe that was a nice point of self-reflection that really helped him. I mean, maybe that's got to be at least part of it. And I feel like there's got to be part of it towards just psychologically speaking, having or being on good footing with Zimmer these days and the head coach.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I think everybody probably saw this on Twitter after the game. The Vikings tweeted a picture of Zim and Kirk in the tunnel and embracing each other again, like everybody enjoyed last week after the
Yeah.
Detroit game. So I feel like that could be part of it too, that he just feels closer to leadership on the team, and I think that's huge for confidence as well, beyond just physical talent. So I think that's huge. And then I don't know, yeah, I think he's just playing with a lot of swag almost.
Mhm. Yeah, I think like what's crazy is like the way the offseason, transpired like in training camp. It was like, man, Zimmer and Kirk are button heads over this whole vaccine thing.
Oh yeah,
These guys clearly don't like each other, which I mean, it seemed kind of obvious. Like it seemed like Zim couldn't stand Kirk.
yeah,
Maybe Kirk was indifferent about Zim, but something happened where it's almost like these guys need each other. Like I think Zimmer's kind of realized, like, hey,
this is
I'm
it.
stuck. I'm stuck with Kirk, and I'm going
This,
down with the ship if it's with Kirk. And
yeah,
it's almost like made them closer. It seems like they've had more of a bond, and
hmm
you've seen that the last 2 weeks after clutch game-winning drives by Kirk Cousins. Him and Zimmer are celebrating together. They're like hugging it out. It's like this is stuff you haven't seen in the 4 years that Kirk Cousins has been here
I know,
or
right?
really seen ever with Zimmer with a quarterback besides maybe Teddy Bridgewater. So
Yeah,
I think it's weird how it went from those two possibly like feuding to strongly disliking each other, and now it's like they need each other and they're they're like like Kirk is playing for Zim and Zim's coaching for Kirk almost. It's kind of a weird dynamic, I would say.
yeah, it's good juju. I like to see it. And speaking of Kirk's performance today, I just wanted to throw in one quick note that I thought of that he'd probably like to have back among this nearly perfect performance, especially second half for him. But I think when he missed Jefferson wide open on what would have been a deep touchdown, like that one was
Yeah.
painful at the beginning of the game. Like that could have come back to bite us had we lost this game, but at the same time we didn't. So it's all right. It's just an afterthought. But at the same time, like you definitely would want that one back. But at the same time, too, I guess you just got to consider that Kirk doesn't usually miss those throws, and you're going to miss that every now and then. But
Hmm.
yeah, yikes! Watch a lot live time. I was super upset about that, but in the end, a win's a win, and it doesn't really matter. But that was definitely a missed play.
That's something like I struggle with too, and I always need to remember is like they're not going to make every single throw. The linemen aren't going to be perfect on every play. Like
Mhm.
it's easy to overanalyze and nitpick everything they're doing wrong,
Yeah.
but it's the NFL. Like the players they're playing against are good too, especially in this case, the Panthers defense.
hmm
So it's like, yeah, like it'd have been nice if you would have hit Jefferson, but like I struggle with this too. Like I need to realize that he's not going to be perfect on every play. And like you look at the stats he put up today, and it matches with how the team did. Like he had 3 touchdowns, almost 400 yards, and it resulted in a victory. Like he did a very good job today, and I got to give him props for that.
Yeah, it was dynamite. I couldn't be happier for him too. I think he's really answering the bell for this team and what feels like a pivotal season for everybody involved, from obviously the front office to Zim, the coaching staff, to Kirk himself, really going into, well, I guess it's the second last year of his contract, but in reality,
Hmm.
probably his last year in Minnesota if we don't get anything done this season. So I think there's a
Yep,
lot of pressure there, and I give him credit for rising up to it to this point. But obviously, there's a lot to be decided after the bye week when
for
we
sure.
come out right away on Sunday Night Football and Halloween against Dallas, but then going coast to coast playing two really good teams in Baltimore and the LA Chargers before coming home to play the best team in the division. So I think there's a lot to come yet, a lot to prove. But to this point, he's playing very well.
So Jackson chimes in, was Chris Herndon worth the 4th rounder? No, he was not. Granted, so we got Herndon in a 6th, but 4th rounder, it has way more value than Herndon in a 6th in my mind. So no, that was a horrible trade because honestly, like Tyler Conklin is a very good player and he's really the only tight end we use. So I think that was a panic trade by Rick, and we'll look back at it in April when it's the 3rd day of the draft and we don't have a 4th round pick. So, I mean, I'm sure he'll make trades to get one, but it was just a dumb trade.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's not great looking back on it, but at the same time, I think for all the people who are saying that we would rather have Ertz than Herndon, I think that's definitely true. I'd rather have Ertz too. But at the same time, I think back when we traded for Herndon, I think Philly's asking price for Ertz was probably a lot more than what it was the other day when they shipped him out to Arizona for a corner and a 5th rounder. So
yeah,
I think that definitely has to be taken into consideration too. But I'm also not super concerned about a 4th round pick either. Like sometimes those players can be huge hits, but at the same time, once they get into day 3 draft picks, I'm not that concerned about it, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
I know Trader Rick definitely loves his draft picks. So that's pretty hard for him to do. But
yeah, and depending on how the season shakes out, we'll have to see if he's even the one making those picks. So
yeah,
you never know there. Marcus also chimes in. It feels like a loss because we play not to lose instead of going for the kill, which leads to close games. And yes, this is exactly what I've been talking about the last several weeks with this team. And there's really no one else to blame, I think, other than Mike Zimmer, because it just simply comes down to game management situations, running the ball on 2nd and long, running it on a 3rd down to set up a field goal rather than especially when it's a deep field goal, try to get the 1st down, keep the clock moving. It's just stuff like that where he just doesn't. And then today we wasted a timeout on defense towards the end of the game, I believe it was.
I think it was on that 4th and 6.
Yes, it was on the
4th time right before Darnold hit DJ Moore down the sideline.
You're right. And I was like, and then I think we got the ball back with I don't know,
40 seconds left.
40 seconds. I was like, wow, it would have been really nice to have that other timeout,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was frustrating too. It seems like he is always using timeouts in the wrong spots. But more than anything, it's just the conservative play calling. He's so afraid that, oh man, if Kirk throws a pick here, then we're, if we lose, then, then what? It's like, at least you're trying to be aggressive. And with how well Kirk is playing, personally, as much of a non-Kirk guy as I am, I would trust him at this point. I mean, he's got 3 really good guys to throw to, almost 4 with Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
2 good running backs. I would trust him. He's got all the weapons in the world. So give Kirk that chance and just roll with it. And kind of like we talked about, Zim needs to realize that he needs to lean on Kirk if he wants to do anything this season and he wants to save his job. So,
yeah, true. Yeah, I also like this comment because I think back on today when we were up 11 in the 4th quarter and we got that another fumble recovery when I think it was the Arvin Watts strip sack. I think we definitely could have really scored 6 again and just put the game away, put it on ice, and wouldn't have to worry anymore because instead we were just, like you said, playing for field goals and playing for 3. And I feel like that obviously didn't work in our favor because Joseph had been missing the kick anyways. And again, we're taking these deep kicks, and that we can't expect them to make those every time. So I think it's put a lot on your kicker's plate. And with the way our offense is moving the ball, I feel like we definitely, like you said, trust the Kirk and just let him sling it around and make something happen with all these talented pass catchers that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Jackson's got another comment here. 2021 Vikings could be the 2007 Giants.
Yes, Jackson.
I love the highs and lows of Jackson's sports fandom. It's absolutely incredible. I don't know, man. I don't know. I have a really tough time seeing us beating the Bucks or the Rams. I guess we'll get to prove it against the Rams this year. We're going to that game, but I don't know. I feel like this team has to have a home playoff game to even really have a chance. If you're playing 3 straight games on the road, this team's just not built to play on the road, in my opinion.
I mean, hardly anybody is. It's pretty unprecedented for teams to do that. Like last year when
it's extremely rare.
Last year when Tampa did it, that was pretty unheard of. Obviously, they had Tom Brady. So that's the ultimate equalizer, but most teams do not. And therefore, most teams do not win 3 road games in a row in the playoffs to get in, because then you're talking about, obviously, your wild card team then, and there's not a lot of wild card teams that go out to the Super Bowl. So obviously, winning the division should be priority 1, and then you build up from there. And it's going to be a pretty tough division to win again this year. I mean, obviously Green Bay's already out to a good start, 5-1.
That's unbelievable, man. After all the drama they had this offseason and now they're 5-1, give me a break.
That just feels so unfair, doesn't it?
And it just goes to show that, like, yeah, their defense isn't great. Their only receiver is Davante Adams, and it doesn't matter. They have Aaron Rodgers. They're 5-1. Like, that's just how it shakes out. It's unbelievable, man.
I know it frustrates me, but at this point, like this early in the season, I guess I'm not paying attention too much to these other teams around us. But at the same time, eventually, we're definitely looking at the Packers and like wondering how are they a one-loss team? Like when you said they had all this turmoil in the offseason, felt like it was going to be a borderline disaster, especially when they came out just ice cold right out of the gates when they played New Orleans week 1, just got throttled, and all of a sudden now here we are and they're 5-1, strung together 5 wins in a row.
And there's our Packer fan buddy Olson chiming in.
Oh my gosh.
Look, man, like I can't trash the Packers. Like I'm over the whole, the Packers get all the calls. The Packers are so lucky. Like,
no, they have Rodgers.
Literally, it just comes down to they have Aaron Rodgers, and I honestly think Matt LaFleur is a pretty good head coach. Outside of that though, like I really don't think they have much. Like Jair Alexander's a good player on defense, but he's out for a while.
I think Aaron Jones is a good back.
Yeah, Aaron Jones is a very good back. You're right about that. But
whoever's coaching O-line there definitely knows what they're doing, because it really doesn't matter who they end up plugging in there. Like, it always works. And as Vikings fans, it's so painful because it's like we never figure it out. We're always talking about this every offseason. Feels like for the Packers. I mean, they lost all-pro center Corey Linsley to the LA Chargers in free agency this year, but it doesn't matter because you got Josh Myers stepping up and filling in just fine. So it's like, how do they make it look so easy? And I think it's definitely got to start with that offensive line coach there.
For sure, yeah. It's like the Vikings and Packers are so opposite because Zimmer just wants this team to be a defensive-driven, run-the-ball team. And since the Packers have gotten LaFleur, they're more balanced with the run and pass, but everything is still running through Aaron Rodgers, and the defense isn't great, but it doesn't have to be. And I think that's kind of what we've been saying all along is like, okay, Zimmer, yeah, you're a defensive guy, but you can also adjust and be a more well-balanced coach. And if your team is a better offensive team, which the Vikings, in my opinion, are a better offensive team than defensive team right now, I think you need to lean into that and roll with that.
100%.
Marcus says again here, am I a bad fan for rooting for us to lose to fire Zimmer? We need a philosophy change. I mean, I was at that point last week when the Lions scored that go-ahead 2-point conversion. Like, I was right there. I was ready to fire Mike Zimmer. So I don't think you're a bad fan because I think you want what's best for this team. You want long-term success, and you're just not seeing that pathway right now because the Vikings struggle to beat bad teams like the Lions, and the Panthers were horrible today, and we could barely beat them. So, no, you're not a bad fan for that because you want what half these other teams in the league have right now, which is aggressive head coaches, young quarterbacks. You want what other teams have basically because that's the way the NFL is trending, and you feel like you feel like the Vikings are getting left behind, which they kind of are. So yeah, I don't think you're a bad fan whatsoever for feeling that because I honestly kind of feel the same way.
No, absolutely not. I totally want to lose. If you don't like Zimmer, I can definitely see that. But me, I'm on the Zim train, so I'm still rooting for wins. But at the same time, like I get long-term health too, and maybe Zimmer's really not the coach you want going into the future. But I don't think either way at this point. I think it's really up in the air. I could definitely get behind either way, whether you actually want them to lose and get a really good draft picks, maybe set yourself up with a really good future player and also pair him with a good coach. But at the same time, I still feel like this team has a lot of potential, and we see it in spurts and in certain moments that this team really could hang with anybody. And like Jackson mentioned, comparing us to the 07 Giants, I think I legitimately do think the Vikings can hang with anybody in this league on their best days, but it's just we got to find some consistency there to play our best football all the time, especially at the end of the season. Hope we're still around at that point after we go through a gauntlet here in the second half.
Yeah, for sure. Olson says these Vikings are incredibly similar to the 2018-19 Packers teams with McCarthy. I guess I don't really remember the Packers obviously won the division those years, but I don't really – where did they end up finishing in the playoffs, right?
No, 18. That was actually the Bears. I remember they won the division.
That's right, with Trubisky.
Yeah, exactly. They went like 12-4. The defense was just dominant, and then we ended up missing the playoffs just barely. But I think we finished above the Packers that season. And then in 19, I think they also. No, I think 19 might have been the debacle when 19 was the hard LaFleur. This is LaFleur's third season, so it would have been what 17, 18.
Yeah, maybe that's what he meant. I don't know. 17 was the year Rodgers got hurt, right?
Yeah, I think 17 was the year Rodgers got hurt because
Yeah, that's what he meant. Yep.
Yeah. Rodgers got hurt in 17 because that was the year, because that was basically what one of the reasons the Vikings propelled towards the top of the division. And I remember that was that whole debacle when he got fired in 18. I
Yeah,
think that
because
was
they
18. He got fired.
lost to the Lions, right?
Lost to the Cardinals. The Cardinals were just god
That's
awful,
right.
and they
That's
ended
right.
up with, I think that's what ended up giving them the number one pick to get Kyler Murray. But they lost that team at home at Lambeau, and yeah, McCarthy was gone that same day. So
That's
uh,
right. Yeah.
it's going down, reminiscing in old times. But I definitely go what Olson's trying to say here. I think that it feels like the Vikings are a little stagnant, especially ever since this Kirk era started. I feel like we've been floating around 500 for 4 years now. So
Yep.
I think I can understand that. I think Zimmer's definitely, if he ends up, if this is it, this is the last season, I think he definitely left this organization in a better place than when he came in. I feel
For
like
sure.
we were kind of a disaster when he first came in. The defense was just awful, and now I feel like we're a pretty formidable team. But at the same time, maybe he's a stepping stone to a new coach that could take us to new heights.
Yeah, Olson also says maybe Lane Kiffin to Minnesota.
Oh my gosh,
And then Jackson
that'd be
says you wouldn't mind that and draft Corral to bring in with him. Like, I don't know about Lane Kiffin as an NFL head coach, man.
that's a huge roll of the dice, and I don't know if he'd give me the stability that I would really like. Like I like my risks, but at the same time, I feel like Kiffin's going way out there.
Yeah, like I know you're a big Lincoln Riley guy, and I feel like that would
Yes.
almost be a safer play than Lane Kiffin because I just feel like Lane Kiffin's such a lightning rod. Like you never know what you're gonna get with him. Honestly, like I don't know, man. I don't. That could be a true disaster. Honestly.
Yeah, or I mean, maybe it'd be a huge hit. I don't know, but get your popcorn.
No, I wouldn't mind Matt Corral because I think he's a really good player. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
But
then again, like this quarterback class in general just hasn't been very impressive. Like look at Spencer Rattler, man. That guy was supposed to be the number one overall pick in this upcoming draft, and now he's benched. Like that's insane. Like I've never seen that before. I don't think when it comes to like talking about number one overall picks.
no, not that I can remember for sure. And I think how the mighty have fallen. And I think this Caleb Williams guy that's replacing him, I mean, obviously he's only played a game and a half or something like that, but he's looked really good from what I've seen. And maybe he'll be a high draft pick. Obviously not this year. He's a true freshman, so it'll be a couple years. But at the same time, maybe he's got some potential. But that's the thing. Lincoln Riley makes it work with a lot of different quarterbacks. They've churned out a couple number one overall picks, and then Jalen Hurts get drafted second round. All three of them took the team to the college football playoff. Like this guy knows how to win. It's just I don't know if he'd ever leave his OU job, but
yeah, that's Olsen saying he's already turned down so many NFL jobs. But honestly, like I don't know. At some point, it's going to be about the money, I think, and obviously he's proven a lot at Oklahoma. I don't know, man. Like, yeah, this Caleb Williams is good, but maybe their run of being like a top 4 team in the nation is coming to a close. You know, maybe he tries to make that jump.
maybe it depends. Yeah, it depends how he feels about the OU program in general. Like if that's just him for the long term, he's gonna be like Dabo Swinney or Nick Saban or something, and just ride out the college game. But at the same time, like you said, it could be about money. But then these days, I think OU is really paying him a pretty penny too. So
That's fair.
I don't know how much money an NFL team would really be willing to fork over, especially in guarantees to a college coach that's never coached in the pros. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of season left here. We don't even know if Zimmer's going to get fired. I mean,
Yeah, I'm still on the Zim train, but hypothetically speaking, I always
yes,
like thinking about things like this, thinking in the future. But
the hypotheticals are always fun because kind of like Marcus was saying, you know, like you want this team to just have a better feel to it. And you know, I don't know. Like after listening to and watching the game today, listening to some post game stuff, it's like I really love the personnel on this team, honestly. Like even down to Kirk Cousins, the way he's playing right now, he's very good right now. And like I have no issue with him. It's like it's clear that the coaching has got to be holding us back because it certainly isn't the players. Like the defense has improved the last 3 weeks. Patrick Peterson once again just looked fantastic today. He locked down DJ Moore until, of course, he got hurt, and then they had the bomb to DJ Moore with Cam Dantzler on him. But
yep.
Daniel Hunter looks incredible. Everson Griffin looks way better than he did last year. Both Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson Tomlinson's starting to round into form now. Michael Pierce looked good before his injury. It's obviously good having Barr back. I think he's kind of made an impact on that defense as well. Kendricks and Harrison Smith are still elite players. Offensively, there's no question about any of the playmakers. And then the offensive line, I think, has improved, while Bradbury is still very suspect. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking for a center next in this upcoming offseason.
Yeah.
And Oli Udo has seemed to regress a little bit, but I don't know, like between Darisaw, Ezra Cleveland, and Brian O'Neill, you for sure, I think, have 3 out of the 5 correct.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of go back to this. Love that you brought up bar. I got my bar bias. Don't worry.
You do.
I rock the bar jersey every Sunday. But at the same time, I think he's just a Joe guy. Say what you want, but I think he's a Joe guy that I think everybody in the locker room respects and uh, likes to have around on the field. And I think he's huge as far as like communication goes on the defense. I think because he's always been whenever he's been or for as long as he's been here, I think he's always been the guy with the green dot on his helmet that's been bringing in all the communications to the defense and getting everybody lined up where they should be. So I think that's pretty huge for probably this defense's improvement these last couple of weeks. And yeah, I still think he's probably a little bit still coming back to full form. I don't think he's quite there, and maybe he never will be, depending on these injuries that he has and how much we know about it. It's hard to say, but especially when he came out after the game last week and was like, "Oh yeah, my body just felt terrible," and like I just felt awful, and it wasn't great. But at the same time, you just keep on keeping on. But
exactly, Olson's wondering if Patrick Peterson's injury is serious. I saw that it was just cramps, but it appeared he was grabbing his hamstring, so it didn't look good at first. But if the team is saying it's cramps, you'd have to think that that's accurate, right? Like.
Yeah,
I don't think they would lie about that, but
I feel you got to take it at face value for that. But at the same time, we'll see once we get past this bye week. But a good time for the bye, I guess. Just let him recover because obviously we're at beyond Peterson this year. I feel like it's been a roller coaster ride with a lot of downs, honestly, for the rest of that cornerback room. But today, I got to say, Breland definitely stepped up and he was huge. I mean, obviously the first play from scrimmage, he picked that pass from Darnold read it the whole way, and then. I saw a stat from one of the ESPN analytics guys that said that when they targeted Breland today, this was in the whole game. This is into the second half or something like that. They targeted him 6 times. He didn't allow a single catch, and then he had the pick. So that's markedly improved from where he's been. Honestly, this whole season, everybody has definitely been taking their fair share of rips at him, especially after last week and made those comments towards the fans. Like that was not a good look. So it's a good thing he responded well this week and played well. And Dancer, obviously, hopefully he's going to get better. Obviously, got burned on that DJ Moore play on that 4th and 6 that set up the Panthers for that game-tying touchdown. But I still like his long-term outlook.
And here's what I'll say about Dancer. Like, that's really the only play I noticed him struggling on today.
Sure.
And he's not going to be a lockdown corner. Like, let's not get it confused here. He doesn't have the build of, like, remember Xavier Rhodes was just like a 6'2" big corner that was like almost intimidating with how big he looked. Yeah. Patrick Peterson's almost the same way, but obviously he's older now. But Dancer just doesn't have that build. And like, I don't think you can expect him to be a lockdown corner. Like more realistic expectations, like, maybe a little bit better Trey Waynes or something, like a nice solid second corner. But I don't think he's a 3rd-round pick. Like, I don't think we should get it twisted. He's not going to be a lockdown corner by any means, I don't think. And he's played pretty well this year when he's been asked to. So, like, I'm very encouraged with what Cam Dantzler's done. So I'm not too worried about that. But
yeah, I also thought Mac looked pretty good today. I think he made a couple nice plays, especially in the second half. So that's good to see too, especially from our struggling cornerback room. Like we said, it's been a lot of downs, I feel like, when we're talking about corners this year. But today felt a little bit better. Obviously, the defense crumbled at the end there, giving up that 98-yard touchdown drive or whatever that was, and that can't happen. I feel like we should be able to trust our defense to hold them out, especially when Darnold went in the last drive. He had completed like 12 of 34 passes or whatever ridiculous completion to attempt it was. But
yeah, like you mentioned Mac. I think I've noticed him playing a lot better like the last 3 weeks, kind of going back to that Seahawks game.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it was about having to, maybe just get his footing back for this defense or something. I thought he wasn't great the first couple of weeks of the season, but I thought he's looked really good the last few weeks. So that is an encouraging sign because the slot corner position is pretty important. And when he was here before, he was pretty solid at that spot. So it'd be nice if he can hold it down, especially, with Jeff Gladney being gone. We don't really have another option there right now. So that'll be interesting. But Marcus chimes in again talking about splitting Cook and Madison more, which, I'm not against it. Maybe not 50-50 just because I think, if Cook's rolling, you got to keep him rolling. But at the same time, like if Cook's getting 25 carries a game, Madison should be getting 7 to 8, like not 3,
Mm-hmm.
like and I agree. It's about preserving Dalvin's health and, hopefully coming out of the bye here, he's going to be completely healthy, which I think the bye is at a perfect time, like you said, because as long as that Patrick Peterson injury isn't serious, I can't think of like any serious injury we have coming out of the bye. Like if you obviously exclude Irv Smith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's a good time too, just because Thielen and Jefferson came into this week where there was a little bit of uncertainty if they were going to play or not, and they both ended up playing. But at the same time, they were
It
on the
was
injury report, so
totally
that's
fine, by the way.
yeah, so that's worth noting. But at the same time, I think if anybody's got anything nagging that's just not even on an injury report, then it's good to have this week off, especially before a critical stretch run here or stretch of the season, I should say. So
And what's kind of interesting too is coming out of the bye here, we play Dallas obviously on Sunday
yeah.
Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas also has a bye this upcoming week. Like, how often is it that you play a team when you come out of your bye that's also coming out of their bye? You like that like never happens for the Vikings. I feel like.
Yeah, no kidding. I know that's gonna be weird. It's gonna be all sorts of strategy going into this game because they're gonna have all this time to sit and think about it. So I think that's definitely worth considering, especially when you got McCarthy and Zimmer. Though they've obviously matched up quite a few times in their days. So I think that's gonna add another wrinkle to it. But it's gonna be a massive game on Sunday night at home at least. That's a big deal just because I think obviously especially our defense always plays better at home, but I think that's critical to play a good Dallas team at home instead of at their place. And especially when the next 2 weeks after that, we're going to go to Baltimore and then go to the other coast and play the Chargers. And that's going to be tough on its own. So it'd be nice to get that big win right out of the bye.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as James chimes in that the Panthers were frauds and the Cowboys will be next to get exposed, which I mean, I hope you're right. Because I think if you can win that Cowboys game, that's a huge win because you finally get back to above 500. You're 4-3. You have a winning record for the first time all season. You're going in the right direction. That next week is against the Ravens, which the Ravens look really good right now, but Lamar Jackson is really capable of having a bad game. Like every now and then he'll have these bad games where he just doesn't pass very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that kind of situation, that's where the Vikings can take advantage. So I know I'm starting to get optimistic here, and it's probably a trap I'm falling into, but
oh, come on, Bailey.
I think it's doable. You got to come out of that bye well prepared, which we rarely do. We always seem to come out flat after a bye week.
Last year was huge, though, that game at Lambeau.
Yeah, that's true. Which we were 1-5, so there was no pressure. But if you can get to 4-3, you knock Dallas down to 5-2. I mean, hopefully Green Bay is able to lose a game here because you still got them twice. So it'd be nice if Green Bay could drop a game here, bring them a little closer to us. But yeah, I don't know. I think this Cowboys game is going to be massive. And of course, it's on Sunday Night Football, but at least it's at home and not at Jerry World.
Yeah, against America's team, it'll be great.
All right, James also chimes in. Looked at the Cowboys' schedule. They only have 2 playoff teams left, the Chiefs and the Cardinals. They have the easiest schedule left in the NFL.
Whoa. Okay.
I think I saw the Vikings have the hardest schedule left in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think I looked at our schedule today, actually, and noted that I think we have 11 games left, and only 3 of them are against teams that have sub-500 records. And if the Steelers win tonight against the Seahawks, I'm pretty sure then it's only 2 games, and that's against the 2-3 Niners and the 0-6 Lions. So
holy smokes!
Otherwise, everybody come out of the bye. You got Dallas 5-1. You got the Ravens 5-1. You got the Chargers 4-2. You got the Packers 5-1. Then you go to San Francisco, and then they're 2-3. And then you got that'd be Detroit 0-6.
Detroit, yeah. Then the Steelers.
Then you got the Steelers, who would be a 500 team. But then you got the Bears, who are at 500, nice 3-3 record. And then you got the Rams, and it just goes on and on, playing all these 1-2 loss teams and all these teams that you're gonna have to come ready to play against. Like there's no snoozers in there. I mean, obviously, you'd like to think you can kind of sleep on the Lions and get away with it, but we almost did that last week and got burned. So definitely got to respect every opponent we're about to play.
And this is going to absolutely define Mike Zimmer's career here. These games coming out of the bye, because his record, him and Kirk specifically, but his record specifically is not good against teams with winning records. And I believe it's like way under 500. Like I want to say it's like 29, 50 and 1 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like if he struggles against good teams, like they have a lot of them coming up here. So that's going to, if they can somehow overcome that, like, I don't know if it's really a him thing or if it's just like dumb luck. Like, I don't know, but his conservative coaching style would sure seem to match up with that. Like if you're not playing to win a game, you're probably not going to beat a really good team. So That's going to be interesting to see how they can match up there. And I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think that could be inevitably what makes him or breaks him. Winning those huge games against these good teams, and like you said, it's just the inability to get it done ever since that 2017 season. I feel like we haven't beat a lot of good teams, so I think if he can kind of pull some wins out of his hat against a lot of good opponents, I think that's going to go a long ways towards keeping him around beyond just 2021. So I think it's great that he's going to be testing. It's time to put up or shut up and make it happen or don't, and then we're going to change it up.
Yeah, the one thing with Zimmer for me is if he was just willing to, he comes into this bye and he realizes like, okay, this is what I need to do to adapt. I'm going to lean into Kirk. I'm going to lean into the offense. Like, this is how we're going to win games. I'd be all for it. But he's just so stubborn. I just don't think he's going to do it. Like, I think he's just going to keep trying to, run the rock with Dalvin and run Dalvin into the ground. I don't care if he's hurt or not. We're going to run him. And try to lean on the defense, which gives up 5 yards a carry every game. Like, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that, honestly. If you're in the playoffs or something, I'm all in. But when you got to talk about low management when you're in regular season, you got to make it to that point first.
Exactly. James talking about how Jefferson won him fantasy today. I need to have a quick humble brag here. I picked up KJ Osborne in one of my fantasy football leagues this week because I had a ton of guys hurt and on buys, and I was looking at the free agent receivers, and I was like, well, if Jefferson and Thielen are both not nicked up a little bit, then might as well try KJ Osborne. And sure enough, he has a great game today. He really didn't have that great of a game until the last catch, but man, that was a clutch pickup, honestly, because he might have helped me win that fantasy match. So
that was a huge touchdown. Absolutely, give yourself a nice pat on the back.
Yeah, I really shouldn't though, because I'm going to be maybe 2-4 in that league and maybe 2-4 in my other league. It's not looking good right now, but at least the Vikings are 3-3. Like, that gives me something to hang my hat on. We got the Wild and Wolves starting up here, which is really exciting. But Marcus talking about we need to let Kirk cook and take more chances. Defense can play more aggressive with the lead. That's a good point, actually, is that if the defense has a bigger lead and they're not on the field as often, like, they can pin their ears back and just go. Like, there's nothing to worry about, because it seems like in that end of game scenario where Carolina drives down the field, it's like they're trying not to be overly aggressive because they don't want to, break contain or, miss an assignment or something like that. And
but then you got the tight end running up the seam for 40 yards anyway. So it's
exactly.
Like, well, what are we doing?
But that's kind of like what we've talked about before. When you're playing more conservative, that's almost where mistakes tend to happen more, because you're not like 100% laser focused on what you're doing. So that's a really good point, actually, is if you just let the offense go out there and just do their thing and get us a decent lead, the defense can pin their ears back and really shut the game down, I think, at that point.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And when we got elite pass rushers, like you got Danielle Hunter, and then Everson Griffin is still very good in his own right. And then even like today, you had a lot of interior pass rush there with guys like Dalvin Tomlinson, James Lynch even coming out and getting some run.
That was good to see.
Yeah, we haven't seen much of him at all ever since we drafted him. And then you also got Armon Watts too. I think he was very solid. So we got a lot of guys who can go get the quarterback, and like I don't mind that idea at all. When you can play with leads, especially late into a game, then that definitely allows you to do that. And you should take advantage of that.
Absolutely. So we're going to try and kind of wrap it up here. Do you have any other like final observations, thoughts as we head into the bye week here? We'll be doing some more Vikings videos, obviously, throughout the next couple weeks before their next game. But just any other kind of final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think this definitely feels a lot more satisfying than it did last week. A win's a win, all the same, all counts the same in the win-loss record. But at the same time, it felt like the offense finally clicked again for the first time ever since that Seattle game. So that's huge. And I get that it was still felt a little stagnant at points in the first half, and I feel like there still needs to be some fine-tuning with play calling in specific spots. But at the same time, it's 550 yards of offense. I can't nitpick it too much, so I'd be happy with that. And the defense feels like it's getting a little bit better every week, so I'm excited about that. The run defense, I think, still looks shaky at points today, but it got better. I saw Chuba Hubbard ended up with like 16 carries for 61 yards, so that's less than 4 yards a carry, and I can definitely live with that for sure.
For sure, yeah.
But at the same time, then we're letting Darnold run free a couple times today, and that nothing frustrates me more than watching a quarterback run all over us, especially when some guy like Sam Darnold.
Exactly, yeah. Not like a Lamar Jackson type, but
yeah.
I guess my observation would be like we've seen flashes from the defense, we've seen flashes from the offense. We've even seen special teams flashes. Like, it'd be really nice if we could just put it all together for one game. Like, I feel like it's not asking for much to just, have the offense and defense play well for a game and go beat the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football by a touchdown, like leave no doubt. Like that's kind of what I'm at. That's kind of what I'm asking for. Cause like even against a team like the Lions and the Panthers, like you left so much doubt in fans' minds because you let them come back into the game. Like last week, we really should have lost to Detroit. That was a heck of a final drive, but like just leave no doubt, man. Go out there and play to win the game and leave no doubt. And you can, there's plenty of time to get this thing. It's kind of getting back on track, but if you can win a couple of these upcoming games here out of the bye, you're going to be sitting really pretty. So that's all I'm asking for is go into the bye, come out more aggressive and be ready to go with your team, hopefully close to 100%. So, All right. Yeah, that'll do it for this live edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Once again, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so. Give this video a like, especially if you're a Vikings fan and you're pumped about today's victory and you're happy with the team going 3-3 into the bye, or if you're upset because Mike Zimmer is still the coach of this team, hit that like button as well.
Yes.
Give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram. That would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, stay tuned for more videos. We'll talk more Vikings this week, and we're also going to get into the Wild and Wolves with their seasons kicking off. So yeah, thanks for watching.